Hey everyone! Welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when you focus on you and your community. My guest this week is Anthony David, who is a gun violence prevention activist and a member of Team Enough's Executive Council, which is a youth-led initiative through the organization Brady with the mission of ending gun violence. I talked with Anthony specifically about the mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado on March 22nd, as well as about the recent chain of shootings around the country. So, with that introduction, let's get started with this episode featuring Anthony David.
Okay. Hello. My name is Anthony David Jr. I'm a DC resident and I attend Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. I started my activism work back in 2017, I'm sorry, when I started my ACLU chapter here in DC at my high school, Washington Latin Public Charter School. And then going on from there, I started with Students Demand Action, working as a social media coordinator for the DC chapter of Students Demand Action. Then I took a little break from activism starting my freshman year of college, because as we all know, activism can be totally draining. And then jumped back in in the middle of the pandemic with Team Enough. So that's where I am today as executive council member here with Team Enough.
That's great. That was a great introduction. I'd love for you to tell me some about the experiences you've had or the challenges you've faced that brought you to this point in life where you felt like you needed to become an activist and you felt like you needed to make your voice heard.
Okay. Yeah, so what kind of brought me into this point? Well, growing up in DC, gun violence has always been a huge problem for many people living in poor neighborhoods such as wards 5, 7, and 8. And I don't know, it kind of seemed to be normalized, and it's something that like we talk about but not necessarily do anything about. And I don't know, growing up it's always been a problem, and like it's always like hearing gunshots, like, and it's just crazy. But it didn't really get started like affecting my life until my friend died in 2017. He was killed in Ward 5 of DC. And that's when it really shocked my world. So moving on from there, like and then that's when like a lot of things started to come into perspective, where it's just like, I don't know, it kind of shows you the two realities of DC, where you have like most of DC natives, as we all know, like DC was known as Chocolate City, and a lot of our Black residents are being affected most by gun violence here in the city. So a lot of times, going to my high school, like I would see my white counterparts, and just like gun violence wouldn't even be like a topic of conversation. Like, and a lot of times in our Black community, like we like always say like, oh, make sure you get home safely, like, oh, like safety is always like a number one concern when you're traveling through these neighborhoods. So it's just like for me, and going like visiting like my white friends across town, like I don't know, it just seemed like it was just two different worlds. Like you could safely walk in the middle of the night like through your neighborhoods, not worry about a thing. And it's just like when I walk through my neighborhood, it's just like, okay, I always have to be cautious. I mean, you have to be cautious everywhere, but I feel like you have to take that extra couple of steps when you're dealing with in a high crime area. So that to me seemed like something that needs to be addressed, especially considering how many people move to DC for their work. Like a lot of times we have gentrifiers or transplants coming to DC, not even immersing in DC culture, not even immersing in DC issues, but yet we have these people move into DC and are able to vote for DC leaders. So it's just like, how would you even know what needs to be done for DC when you're not even from DC or not interacting with people who are from DC? And that right there, it's like was to me was the biggest issue, was the disconnect between people actively using their platforms and people with the privilege to donate money, the privilege to have all these opportunities and not actively support the community that they're moving in, like, yeah, the community that they're moving in. And also, like, gun violence isn't something that just is something that is just unique to DC. Gun violence is something that's like it's something that affects everyone. Like as we've seen in Atlanta, how we have a hate crime where a man comes in, a white man at that comes in and kills a whole bunch of Asian Americans. And like again, like gun violence affects everybody, like white people, black people, Asians, like it's just a reality of America. And that is, to me, was just such an issue. Yeah, that's definitely when I started to work towards ending gun violence.
I really appreciate you sharing that background with me, and I'm really glad to have this conversation with you. If you're comfortable, I'd like to start off with you explaining your thoughts and what was going through your mind when you saw the headlines about the shootings in Atlanta on March 16th and then in Boulder on March 22nd. What were your thoughts when you heard what happened?
The first thing when I saw these headlines, well, the first thing I was thinking, I was just like, dang, like I guess it's that time again. Like I guess like we're going back to normal. Like I guess the pandemic's over. Like the regular routines are starting back up. Like with these mass shootings, and it's just crazy. Well, yes, it's crazy, but it's something that's not out of the ordinary because again, like we've been seeing this happening. We've been seeing what's going on, and apparently, what I found out today was the shooter that was in Colorado. He was born like I guess 3 days. I think I'm not sure, but when I read it, I think it said that he was born 3 days before the Columbine shooting. So it's just like wow, like look at that. Like since Columbine, still nothing's changing. But and also when I look at these headlines, like obviously, like there's always like some sort of sugarcoating when it comes to when white men do these acts. Either it be like he's having a bad day or oh like like the usual stuff. So especially with the Parkland shooting, how like I guess people were trying to like blame video games and stuff like that, but it's just like let that been a black person. It's oh like a thug, oh like they don't know what they're doing. Like it's just a whole bunch of negativity on the black community when it comes to black men having guns or black people in the gun violence situations. But when it's a white person, it's always like it's always had to be like we need to help this person, like we need to focus on like rehabilitation instead of incarceration. But and again like and a lot of the times in America, like all these unarmed black people are being killed. Like, for example, like Breonna Taylor, she was in the comfort of her own bed, and the police officers come in and shoot her. But a white man can carry a AR-15 and and they just acting like it's just a usual like a usual drill, like talking to the guy like I don't it's like obviously when it comes to black people, I feel like police officers shoot to kill, but when it comes to white people, it's more so de-escalate the situation. Now, I don't know, like this stuff is just crazy. Like the headlines, like publicists, I feel like they know what they're doing, but at the same time, like they don't. Like, yeah, I guess that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, all that makes sense, and thank you for explaining some of those thoughts to me. So, I would also, what changes do you think, or maybe what changes do you hope will come from these acts of gun violence? What are you thinking is going to come from here?
I feel like it's becoming more of a reality for a lot of groups of people other than Black Americans, especially for the Asian community. Like I'm not really educated on like how often Asian hate crimes happen, especially like as big as what happened in Atlanta. But I feel like I definitely feel like it definitely shook the Asian community where like gun violence is like a priority, and gun violence, well, and Asian hate in general is one of a big top priority. I feel like that can also like cause more solidarity between the Asian and Black community. I'm sorry, I kind of blanked. What was the question?
What changes would you do you think is going to happen or will come from these acts?
Changes. Yeah, other than more solidarity, I don't really see like big changes happening because again, like we've seen this all happen before. Like we know the cycles. Like it's going to be like a whole bunch of media attention around these issues for a couple weeks, maybe a couple of days. We'll see, and then like it's just going to go silent. And like hopefully, like lawmakers will understand. Like what's going on. Like, well, people are dying, but yet, like, I feel like a lot of the times, especially like for like, especially with my situation, like a lot of times, like people just don't understand until it happens in their lives. Not to say like the more and more like stuff happens, because that's definitely not what it's something that we want to happen. But I feel like the more and more people are educating themselves, the more and more people are, going into other communities and understanding what's going on with people. I feel like at least what we could get out of this, or the change that we're going to see out of this, is more people understanding and more people looking at gun violence as a big issue.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the very least, people are paying attention. You touched on the pandemic kind of ramping down. Why do you think there is such an increase in gun violence right now? There have been over 100 mass shootings in the US since the beginning of the year, and I've definitely been overwhelmed by the news about all the different incidents. Why are those incidents ramping up right now?
I feel like a lot of the time, well, I feel like especially like for the pandemic, like we all had time to think and self-reflect, and that might be for the good or for the bad. And for a type of person who does these types of acts, like, so say for example, how we had the Capitol riots. The FBI arrested a lot of people who, well, first of all, some of these people were already on the FBI watch list, and they were planning on like really killing African Americans. Like these people had guns for days, like just like ready to go to war. And we've seen, and they also had like bombs and stuff like that. So it's just like obviously you can't make these plans overnight. Like, oh, at least I hope not. Like, well, I don't know, but I feel like the pandemic definitely gave people a lot of free. Had a lot of people had a lot of free times on their hands to come up with these heinous acts, and I just feel like now that the pandemic is not necessarily coming to an end because COVID is still out there, but I feel like now I feel like it's less to do with the pandemic, but more so weather getting warmer. 'Cause I know for a lot of times, especially here in DC, like when the summertime comes around, like that's when gun violence usually increases. So I feel like the pandemic coming to an end, and also the temperature is getting warmer, it kind of is going hand in hand. So I feel like that might have some reasoning behind it. But also, like, who really knows why people do what they do?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. And you mentioned a little bit about taking some time off of activism. I think when you first went into college, you said. I think a lot of people who have been following the news closely may feel overwhelmed or frustrated right now after the shootings. But what do you do when you need some time off? Do you have any advice about, or could you talk some about the importance of taking a break?
Yeah. So for me, I don't know. I feel like this is for a lot of black people as well. Like always seeing on social media, like how black people get treated in America can is definitely like very triggering. Like for me, like I'm not the type of person who I'm not the type of person who like takes disrespect lightly. Like I'm a reactive person. Like I will always defend myself and defend the people that I love. And also like with my ancestors as well, like the things that they had to go through, it just so crazy. So the fact that we're seeing like a lot of this stuff in a different form, like to this day, like it is crazy to me. And a lot of times it gets triggering because just like I get mad, like I get sad, like, and it's really crazy. Like for example, like the Capitol riots, like that was the biggest slap in the face for me. Like having been to protest in DC, like a lot of the times we couldn't even go around the block without getting harassed by police officers. But yet, like they let all these white people come into the Capitol and just do whatever they want with it. So it's just like, where is the priorities? But as far as like self-care, like I tend to like stay away from social media. Like I try not to argue with people online. I feel like, especially, well, I don't do that like now, like as I get older, but like especially in high school, because a lot of times, like when you talk to people, like they really do not try to, especially when it comes to like black issues, like it's either they don't really understand, which isn't like 100% their fault, but like at the same time, it's like they try actively not to understand. So it's just like that also gets irritating too. So I guess for me, it's just run away as far as possible from people. Like I just tune everything out. Like I just stay off of social media. Like I try not to like engage in like conversations that will like either get heated or just get heated or like have difference of opinions, like I just try to just protect my peace, like, and just live out my life normally without activism, and then jump back in when I have the energy to entertain it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and it's really important for people to hear right now. I have one last question for you that I'm definitely interested to get your take on. Lots of young people, particularly college students, want to create change and they want to make a difference in the world. Do you have any advice that you'd want to share with these people who may not really know where to get started?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you don't necessarily have to be an activism, not activism. Don't have to necessarily be an activist to create change. Like, not everybody has to be the next MLK. Not everybody has to be the next president. Like, 'cause I feel as though real change starts in your community and the areas that you like that you're present in, the areas that you touch the most. Like for me, it was starting with having simple conversations with my counterparts as far as like Black liberation goes. Like, and it might not be easy, but it's definitely like a first step, having those difficult conversations with people that you might not that might not usually get this. Also, the first step is also education. Like, you have to know what you're talking about, and you have to know like what's going on if you really want to create change. And again, like I feel like I feel like reinvesting in your community is the best way to get stuff done, because it's just like you're in this space, you know that space like better than anybody else. Like you are that space, you grew up in it, you like interact with it every day. So I feel like, or like, try not to focus on what everybody else is doing, or like in other states or stuff like that. Focus on you and your community, and how you and your community can improve. So that goes for like when it's time to vote, like voting for your local representatives and making sure your local representatives are doing the right thing. Because it's just like we can't all depend on our presidents to do stuff. We can't all depend on these bigger and major figureheads to stuff. 'Cause I feel like change definitely starts at the bottom and will eventually find its way to the top.
I'm really glad that I got to talk with Anthony and think that his advice about taking care of yourself and your community was really helpful. Being from right outside of Boulder, I felt pretty helpless and pretty frustrated hearing about the attack, but Anthony's words reminded me that taking some time away from social media and the constant stream of current events can be really helpful and sometimes really necessary. If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a step back. Take some time away and then refocus when you're feeling ready, because change comes when you focus on you and your community. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can follow Anthony on Instagram at _ant333_ to follow along with his content and get connected with him. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.